Greetings, Nick with Sweetwater here, and today we're going to be taking a quick look at the exciting new range of tube amps that are highly affordable from our friends at Blackstar in the sunny English town of Northampton. Yes sir, we're looking at the St. James series, lightweight but with a killer punch. The St. James series consists of a total of 6 products, 2 50-watt 1x12 combos, 2 50-watt heads, and 2 vertical 2x12 cabinets. To be exact, there's a 50-watt head and combo with 6L6 power tubes, and also a 50-watt head and combo that houses EL34 power tubes. Thus, we have 2 families of 2, if you will, with the 6L6 pair boasting black vinyl with silver grill cloth, and the EL34 pair fawn vinyl with black grill cloth, as you can see behind me. And that's the reason for there being 2 2x12 cabinets as well, one in each finish, of course. And oh yeah, as you can see, the Blackstar logos on all of them light up as well. Nice. I'm playing through the 50-watt 6L6 head and its matching 2x12 cab. As I've just said, both clad in black vinyl with silver grill cloth on the cab. And next to it, by the way, is the 50-watt EL34 1x12 combo with the fawn vinyl and lovely black grill cloth. You'll hear the latter in a few minutes when my good pal Don Carr pops in and puts my playing chops to shame. So stay tuned, my friend, stay tuned. The difference between the 6L6 and EL34 amps is obviously not just cosmetic but tonal too. In a nutshell, in addition to the tube changes, when the gain of the overdrive channel starts getting cranked, the 6L6 pair get medieval in a modern high gain way, with their EL34 siblings having a much more classic voice, if you will. More about that in a minute. As I've hopefully made clear, all 4 of the St. James amps are 50 watters, and they also have 2 foot switchable channels, labeled, wait for it, yep, 1 and 2, but Roman numeral style. Also, channel 2 happens to have a foot switchable voice option, which adds more oomph, more drive, so it goes from rhythm to lead, if you will. Before we get into the front and rear panel features of these tonally flexible amps though, let's take a quick look at Blackstar's aims with the St. James series, as these amps have some pretty cool traits that make them extremely unique. Here's what the Brits behind these amps told me when I spoke to them recently. Their design philosophy was twofold, and the first one, which is pretty darn important, was this. Their first goal was to produce a range of tube combos and amps that were the lightest available on this planet, while retaining the essential elements of traditional tube amps, with no tonal compromise in either tone or performance. Now that's a pretty lofty but also much sought after goal. After all, in the world of electric guitar, tube amps remain the gold standard in terms of not only tone, but that all-important thing, feel. And one of the biggest cons or negatives of such great sounding and feeling amps is that they're invariably heavy. Darned heavy, in fact. Obviously, lower wattage tube variants help on this front, but if you want a great sounding tube amp or combo capable of kicking out 50 or more watts, weight definitely becomes an issue. And the older and lazier you get, the more of an issue a heavy amp becomes in your world. Sorry, my friend, couldn't resist that one. Anyway, to a valve amp fan such as myself, tubes alone do not a great amp make. It's not just having tubes in there that counts, it's the sound and the feel of the amp that's really, really important. It's how you feel when you play the sucker. And a pretty pivotal component of that all-important feel is the loose coupling effect of a real output transformer. and those suckers are invariably a big chunk of iron and therefore not exactly light. In fact, some of my old 100 watt Marshall heads are literally backbreakers. Yes, to these fingers, this amp sounds and feels great. And it's light, extremely light in fact. Now, how light do I hear you ask? Well, my friend, the small box 50 watt head behind me weighs in, believe it or not, less than 15 pounds. 14.77 pounds to be exact. Now, there are other all-tube 50 watters out there that weigh twice or even 3 times as much. And as for the Celestion loaded 2x12 behind me, that hits the scales at a mere 30 pounds. And many 2x12 combos clock in at around 50 pounds or more. Ouch. And as you've probably already ascertained, this St. James 50 watt head and 2x12 cab pairing may be lightweight, but they are definitely capable of producing a heavyweight punch that will knock you out. So the obvious question is, how did Blackstar so successfully reduce the weight while not compromising tone and feel? Well, for a start, they used sturdy plywood made from lightweight candlewood. And yes, said wood comes from trees. Duh! They also successfully reduced the weight of the amp chassis as well. Now, another major weight factor is obviously those all-important transformers. And the $64,000 question is this: how do you reduce their mass without sacrificing performance, tone, feel, and also reliability? And that's exactly the question I asked the Blackstar boffins in Northampton. How did you do this? And this is what they told me, and I'm going to quote them verbatim as I'm not as smart as they are. And I quote, "We have found that by specific interleaving of the windings and careful choice of lamination material, along with a couple of other geometric considerations, we can design an output transformer that produces the tone we require from a modern guitar amplifier, while reducing unnecessary size and weight, and are still fully able to withstand the strict thermal requirements that we have always had. Hence, lower weight without sacrifice of tone or reliability." Phew! See why I had to read that? No idea what they're saying, but check it out, it works. Anyway, ultimately, there's an old saying that says this: the proof of the pudding is in the eating. And thus, when it comes to amplifiers, the proof of the amp is in the playing. And my fingers and ears definitely like what they hear and feel. So Blackstar's specific interleaving of the winding, careful lamination, material choice, and other geometric considerations clearly paid off. Nice one, gents. Now, obviously, when it comes to the overall weight of both combos and speaker cabinets, the speakers factor in pretty heavily. Awful pun not intended, I promise. To this end, the Blackstar boys work closely with Celestion, and the result is the proprietary, lightweight, 8-ohm, 12-inch Zephyr speakers that's voiced like the much-revered vintage 30 speaker by the same company. Oh yeah, and by the way, the Zephyr is not, I repeat, not a neodymium speaker. No sir. The magnet is not neo. Once again, simply put, the boffins involved found a clever way to reduce weight without any negative sonic impact. Hurrah! And speaking of speakers, before I forget, the pair of 50 watt 1x12 combos weigh in at a very back-friendly 28 pounds. Very, very nice indeed. The other design goal that the Blackstar team had was this: to give each and every St. James amp outputs that delivered an authentic direct sound, accurately emulated, and I quote, a mite cabinet of a hard-driven valve amp in a room. To this end, these outputs carry the full signal path of the amp, including those good old power tubes and that all-important output transformer. So it's actually the output speaker signal that's being used here. This signal is then running through an internal reactive load and then through some proprietary, patent-applied for DSP that enables you to mix and match a bunch of cabinet, mic, and room options. And it's easy to use too. I like it. And that's what you heard at the start of this video. I recorded the backing guitars using exactly that, and then I ran a line from the back of the amp directly to the camera for my playing over said backing. If you want, you can tweak the cabs, mics, and rooms to your heart's desire via connecting your computer to the amp with a USB cable and then using Blackstar's cab rig software. And that's exactly what I did. In fact, let's hear that again right now. This is the direct-to-camera in stereo sound. Phew, that's a lot of info, but it's important stuff. That's why we covered it. Anyway, that all said, let's take a quick tour of the front panel of the 6L6 head, shall we? And just so you know, all the other St. James amps feature the exact same controls and switches. Going from left to right, we have the input jack, a volume control for channel 1, a channel select switch, gain control for channel 2, channel 2's voice switch, and the volume control for channel 2 as well. Then we have shared EQ controls for bass, middle, treble, and also a shared reverb control. Then, just before the overall master volume, we have a power selection switch that offers you 3 options: 50 watts, SAG, or a neighbor-friendly and family-friendly 2 watts. More about SAG and 2 watts in a minute. Oh yeah, and then last but certainly not least, we have the usual suspects, namely the standby and power switches. The reverb is a high-quality, good-sounding digital one, as is now the norm on modern guitar amps. Now, when you select SAG on the mini power switch, it does exactly what you expect, namely the power supply sags, giving notes a dynamic compression which is most noticeable when you pick really hard. This gives you a softer and, dare I say, more vintage feel when you're playing. And that was some SAG. As for the 2 watt setting, well, that's what I've been using all the time here, because it's great for those times when you want to overdrive the power amp without your neighbors or your cameramen calling the cops, which is also good for smaller gigs and also while recording. Incidentally, this is not achieved via a power soak, which will alter the sound and feel of the amp though. Instead, it is done by controlling the working voltages of the power stage. The result is that the tone remains the same, but at a much lower volume, and it's also much better for the life and reliability of your power tubes too, because the amp doesn't run hot, as is the case with a power soak. Channel 1 sound and feel is inspired by the classic American amps of the mid-60s. Can you say Fender Blackface? And as a result, it's clean and bright with solid lows and well-controlled mids. Also, when on channel 1, the power stage is set to be nice and tight. These qualities not only make for a great sound, but make channel 1 a great pedal platform too, something Don will show you. Here's channel 1 with me playing clean badly. You get the picture. Clean, sparkling, spanking clean. As already mentioned, channel 2's voicing depends on which St. James flavor you have, 6L6 or EL34. Don will run you through the EL34 one in a few minutes. Here's the backstory on the modern high-gain beast that is channel 2 of the 6L6 version behind me. When its voice switch isn't activated, channel 2 is very British in its tonal nature. Lashings of chest-punching overdrive and a tight power stage. When the voice switch is activated though, not only do you get more gain and saturation, the power stage is reconfigured for that looser modern high gain feel and lots of low end chug and resonance. Let's check it out with a magical digital guitar change, shall we? Yes, my friend, that's definitely got some high gain, low end oomph to it, hasn't it? Let's quickly put it to the 7-string test as well, shall we? Let's take a quick look at the rear panel next, shall we? And then I promise we will bring in Don to quickly run the EL34 combo through a few of its paces. Going from left to right, after the mains input and HT fuse, we have 3 speaker outputs, clearly marked to ensure that you make the right connections. And then we come to something pretty darn cool, the cab rig output section. Yep, this is where you tap into the aforementioned cab, mic and room emulations that are at the very end of the amp's signal chain. There's an XLR output and also a stereo, line out and headphone output too. There are also 3 built-in cab rig presets ready to roll without having to hook up your computer. And you select them via the mini toggle switch labeled, wait for it, cab rig. And incidentally, if you want to change any of these 3 cab rig presets, all you've got to do is this, and it's real easy. You just hook up your computer, use the cab rig software, and then after editing, save the result. And furthermore, if you put the amp on standby, you can record in silence or perform on a silent stage too. And obviously in the case of the head, when you're doing this, you don't have to have a cabinet hooked up either. So the resulting silence will not only be golden, but won't take up much space either. Next up are the send and return jacks for the amp series effects loop, along with a loop level switch that takes you from 4 dBs for pro rack gear down to 10 dBs for stomp boxes. Don will demo that in a second. Next to that is the Footswitch jack, where you can plug in the 2-way LED foot switch that comes with the amp. As you can see, you can switch between the 2 channels, 1 and 2, and also activate the voice option on channel 2 as well. Then last, but certainly not least, we have the USB audio socket. This not only carries a USB audio output signal via the cab rig technology, but also where you hook up your computer and mess with the cab rig stuff. As already mentioned, the cab I'm using here is a vertical 2x12 loaded with 270-watt, 12-inch 8-ohm Celestion Zephyr speakers. It also has a logo that will light up if you plug in a regular 9-volt stomp box power supply into the rear panel. Nice. I've seen the light indeed. Get it? And by the way, the middle third of the back is firmly attached via Velcro, so if you'd like the cabinet to go from closed back to open back, you simply pull the sucker off. And there you have it, from closed to open. Phew, that's a lot of ground we've covered, but all good stuff. Anyway, enough of my nonsense. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one, the only, Don Carr. And by digital magic, here he is, Don Carr. Hey. Thanks for showing up, my friend.
Thanks, Nick.
Take it away.
I shall indeed. The 50-watt EL34 combo version. So the combo version, obviously still incredibly lightweight, and still got all the punch and all the power, right? So the difference is in channel 2.
Right.
That's really the difference in the sound, and it's mostly in the voicing.
Right.
That's just that, you know, they voiced it to sound like the classic British early 60s chimey sound. And it's great. I don't know what else to say. The best thing to do is just hear it.
Yep, please do. And if you could show the clean as well, because I briefly showed the clean here. Obviously, the EL34s are going to give it a slightly different flavor as well.
Right. Oh, and the combo as well.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
going to give it a slightly different flavor. Yeah, but the voicing is the same for the channel. It's that kind of American, 60s American tone. Nice solid bass, kind of a little scoop in the mid-range, and good high end. I've also got a Dunlop Echoplex in the effects loop, so
Nice.
we can check that out too. So let's start with the clean channel.
Yeah, very, very American. It's got that beautiful chime, that richness.
Yeah,
And you can see, folks, why I only played a few minor 7 chords and moved away from clean, because here is the master. So thanks for showing that.
Oh, absolutely. And it takes pedals well too. It really does. I got a JHS Screamer, so I'll kill the Echoplex. I just got it in the front end of the amp, kind of set for light gain. But here it is through the clean channel.
Yep, like you said, a great platform amp.
Yeah, it really is. Really is. So impressive, and I love having an effects loop because then you can, of course, use the gain in the amp and still have your time-based effects on the back end. Which, let's go to channel 2, shall we?
Yes, indeed.
So you right away you can hear that it sounds completely different than the 6L6 version. That's at half gain, so you can even kind of get cleaner tones out of this. In fact, I'll turn that down. And so you can almost have like 2 clean channels with different character.
Nice. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, crazy, isn't it? I mean, so, and obviously just dialing on the fly here, but crank it up a little more. You can see how the saturation, it stays pretty even and pretty linear. It just gets more saturated.
Right.
So here it is at like most of the way up.
Yeah, it's like great blues, but also you could dress like a schoolboy and play a whole lot of Rosie and
Yeah, exactly,
fit
man.
perfectly.
Exactly. And so let's check. Well, okay, so here's the boost. Oh, right, Footswitch. Here's the boost. And interesting thing about this boost is it's just a 10 dB straight clean boost into the front of the amp.
Right.
So it's just another, just ups the gain. Doesn't change the character though.
Right.
It stays the same. So here we are cranked with the boost off, and then I'll kick it in.
Yeah, flavor remains the same, but it's thicker. A thickening device.
Yeah.
Perfect.
A thickening device. And same deal, that channel responds really well to gain pedals as well. I'm going to leave the same setting that I had on the Screamer and just, and I'll take the boost off so we don't get too boosty.
Look. Nice.
Yeah, I got a real good snarl to it. And again, great with the effects loop because you've got all that gain and you're going to get, some pristine, you know what I mean, pristine-ish delays.
And the one thing we were talking about earlier before the camera switched on is when you were playing clean, from this angle you can see the grill cloth moving, which goes back to the importance of having a transformer doing its job. So even though it's lightweight, the transformer is creating that loose connection with the speaker. So there's the flatulence, as I call it, just like in a big, heavy transformer. They did a great job in reproducing that.
They sure did. It doesn't, sonically, it doesn't feel like they skimped on anything. A lot of times with a lightweight amp, that's what they do. They just start taking everything that's heavy out and replacing it with something that's light. And that doesn't always work, man. They cherry picked the right things and did it the right way. And then with something as as important as the transformer, they went all the way down the rabbit hole to make sure it was right.
Yeah, and the viewers heard me read what they told me earlier, because they went into great detail. And I worked with those guys at another English company, and they are tone nuts. They all play guitar, and you can kind of tell it, because you can't design an amp with an oscilloscope. You have to play and feel it, in my opinion. It's a three-dimensional tactile thing, so you have to be there as a guitar player and go, this feels right.
Yeah.
And this feels right, so well done, chaps in Northampton. Nice job. So Don, play us out of your little section, and then I will finish this bad boy. But thanks so much for showing up, and also showing me up on the clean side. Darn you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Don Carr, take it away, my friend. To close, let's quickly hook my laptop up to the head and take a lightning look at the cab rig software. Right, I've connected the St. James amp to my laptop via USB, and I've opened up the free cab rig software, which recognizes the amp as soon as I switch it on, so we're ready to roll. As you can see right now, I've got 2 cabs and mics selected in a small room. And that's exactly what I'll hear via the amp's cab rig carrying outputs, namely the balanced XLR output, the stereo line out, and the aforementioned USB. Then merely by pointing and clicking, I can change the cabs, or I can change the mic, and I can EQ each of the cab settings, cab 1 and 2. I can also change the room from small to medium to large, and I can choose it to be damped or not. Then I can also go to the master, mess with the EQ, as I can the EQing of each cab 1 and cab 2. I can bypass EQ, or if I want, I can select an EQ preset, which makes life easier, whatever I want to do. So let's quickly look at the cab selections. So as you can see, I've got a bunch of cabs, including 7 2x12s, 7 4x12s, and 6 1x12s, some 1x10 options as well. And if I want to replace one or both cabs with a DI, all I do is this. I click on my cab setting option, click on the sleeping cat icon, and hey presto, there it is. That's my DI with a 4x12. As regards to microphones, I've got 6 to choose from. Once again, I just click, select, and there we have it. And when I come up with something I like, I merely hit the save icon, and I can either save it to the device, or I can actually save it to the amp itself and replace one of the 3 presets within it. So there you have it. Pretty nifty, huh? And also pretty intuitive as well. It must be. I managed to suss it out without even looking in a manual. And there you have it, the St. James series of amps from Blackstar. Lightweight tube amps that punched like heavyweight champions. Mike Tyson in his prime, if you will. And thanks to the 2-watt setting, there will be no ear damage done whatsoever, hourly or orally. For more information on the St. James amps or any other of Blackstar's fine offerings, please go to sweetwater.com, or better still, call your sales engineer and they will be only too happy to help you out. Thank you so very much for watching. Don't forget to like, Comment nicely please, and also subscribe. Click here for more videos like this, or start at sweetwater.com for all of your music instrument and pro audio needs. Have a simply splendid day, my old mate. Cheerio!